In terms of graphic violence, episode 4 is pretty tame by the boys' standards. And seeing as this episode included a massive fight featuring things that I shouldn't mention in the first 30 seconds of this video, that really tells you something. But there were still a bunch of little Easter eggs, hidden jokes, and references to the comic books, all of which we wanted to take a look at here as we go through some of the things that you might have missed in episode 4 of The Boys' 3rd season. And yes, there will be spoilers. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the later stages of the episode follows the boys as they search a Russian laboratory for the supposed weapon that killed Soldier Boy, only to learn that the weapon didn't actually kill Soldier Boy, but is Soldier Boy. It turns out that after the debacle in Guatemala, the Russians took Soldier Boy very much a live body to a secret laboratory in Russia where they conducted a series of tests on him, seemingly reproducing their very own replica of Compound V, and turned him into an even more powerful supe with the apparent means to render other supes powerless. Now, apart from the whole massive laser beam coming out of his chest thing, this story is obviously pretty close to a character from Marvel Comics, Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, who was of course abducted, experimented on, and turned into a dangerous weapon. With Soldier Boy now on the loose, it is very likely that he will become the boys' main adversary throughout the rest of the season, and even pose a massive threat to the current most powerful supe, Homelander.
Okay.
But will Soldier Boy have a redemptive arc just like Bucky did in the MCU? Maybe even restore a boat with Anthony Mackie and share a six-pack? Well, seeing as this is The Boys, I wouldn't put money on it. But with Soldier Boy now AWOL, it would be nice to see how Homelander and Vought deal with the reappearance of their presumably dead poster boy, and how Homelander will try and deal with it without the help of Edgar covering everything up.
What good would that do?
Speaking of the Russian laboratory scene though, one of the best sequences has to be when the V'd up hamster goes on a White Rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail-esque violent killing spree. But while this is a hilarious sequence in of itself, you may have missed the fun reference to the comics. As Frenchie and Mother's Milk look at the hamster, they learn that its name is Jamie. This is a reference to the hamster from the boys' comics, where Hughie discovered him living in the anus, yeah you heard that right, of supervillain Blarney Cock after Hughie accidentally killed him. Originally named Hughie, Herbie felt sorry for the hamster and ended up keeping it as a pet, changing its name to Jamie instead. If we do see the souped up hamster again in The Boys, or whether or not Hughie will take him as a pet, or even if he will go up against Homelander in a fight for the ages, is unclear. But we just hope that he doesn't end up with the same fate as Timothy the Octopus. Still missing you, Timmy. Gone way too soon.
Wasn't that delicious?
So while we have seen Butcher juicing up and quite clearly becoming addicted to temporary Compound V, this was our first time seeing Hughie as a supe, after he secretly stole some of the V off of Butcher and gave himself teleportation powers. While this is a first for the show, the boys are no stranger to superpowers in the comics, with Butcher actually giving each member a dosage of Compound V to help them take out corrupt superheroes. Although in the comics, Hughie doesn't take the Compound V willingly, and Butcher actually forcefully injects him with the substance which gives him superpowers. However, his powers differ from the show in the comics, as instead of the power of teleportation, he has superhero strength and durability. Hughie on Compound V has been foreshadowed throughout the season, such as him being angry that he can't open the jars in his and Starlight's apartment because she puts them on too tightly. But it is also foreshadowed in the episode as Hughie seemingly gets frustrated that Starlight has to defend him once again as he squares up to Homelander. Also, quick side note, but did anyone else think that the fact that Hughie loses his clothes when he teleports is a joke that the Hulk always manages to keep his pants on every single time he turns green? Or is it just me? The relationship between Frenchie and Kimiko is getting stronger and stronger, and we are totally shipping them over here. Probably because they were also shipped in the comics. But one of the sweetest moments between them comes as they plan to run away together, with Kimiko suggesting that they go to Frenchie's hometown of Marseille. However, while Marseille may have been his native town in the show, in the comics he was born in a small village, which according to Google Maps is an over 6-hour drive across the south of France from Marseille. While little else is known about Frenchie's backstory, it is also said that the town he grew up in actually spoke its own unique dialect of French. But as you know, the show has definitely played it fast and loose when it comes to sticking to the source material, case in point Black Noir, who, speaking of which, did anyone catch that drawing? Because that to me looked like Alvin the Chipmunk. The Boys has no qualms satirizing pop culture and real-life events, TV shows, and even ads. And the most notable instance of this is the cringeworthy commercial A-Train shoots for his energy drink, Turbo Rush. This commercial is an almost shot-for-shot remake of the infamous Kendall Jenner Pepsi commercial, except unlike the Pepsi ad, it's not inexplicably over 4 minutes long. A possible movie reference comes at the beginning of the episode where in a flashback, a young mother's milk is playing with what I believe is, sincere apologies if I'm wrong here, a 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. For any Burt Reynolds buffs out there, you will know that the 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am is an iconic car from the movie Smokey and the Bandit, where Reynolds' Bandit accepts a job to deliver Coors from Texas to Georgia within 28 hours, all the while being hunted down by Sheriff Buford T. Justice, a character who would feel right at home in The Boys. Mixed in that scene with the flashback of Mother's Milk and the Trans Am is a taped recorder of Soulja Boy singing a hilariously bad cover of Rapture by Blondie on the show Solid Gold. For any people who are wondering, Solid Gold was indeed a real music variety show that ran from 1980 to 1988, where most of the stars actually lip-synced their performances. Also on the subject of music, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Russian cover of I Will Survive during the whole Kimiko fight scene. Weird choice, but it worked. Homelander's usual way of getting what he wants and keeping order is by committing horrific acts of violence. But his way of ousting Edgar and becoming the new leader of Vought was a surprisingly bloodless coup, using Edgar's secret weapon, Newman, against him. It's no surprise that Homelander would go after Edgar, but the timing was a little bit shocking. However, it was actually somewhat foreshadowed in the episode. As Homelander talks on the Cameron Coleman Hour, he alludes to people secretly pulling the strings in a bid to make him look like the bad guy, including people in Vought itself. The scene then quickly cuts to Edgar as he brings a coffee to Newman, suggesting that Homelander already had his sights on taking down Edgar. You would have likely seen this one, but it's worth mentioning. As the show sets the scene in Russia, we see a bunch of graffiti that portrays the Seven in an unflattering light. When you take into account how the show sets up the way the Seven are seen in the US as heroes and celebrities, this is an almost direct juxtaposition of how they are seen and portrayed in the US. And it is an interesting look at how people outside of the US actually see the Supes. Also, did anyone catch the comic character in the background of Butcher and Mother Milk's conversation? My eyes aren't quite what they used to be staring at screens all day, so if anyone knows who that character is, please let me know down in the comments below. We have mentioned it before, but the parallels between Homelander and Butcher are only starting to deepen. And as Butcher becomes more and more addicted to his Homelander-like powers, he is becoming much more selfish and tyrannical, just like the man that he hates the most. In one scene in particular, Butcher sounded just like Homelander as he says, "I'll tell you what to do, and you'll do it," which is especially prevalent as it comes in the episode where Homelander assumes control of Vought and threatens anyone who was previously aligned with Edgar. With Butcher becoming more and more like Homelander and his addiction to Compound V becoming more and more severe, we can imagine it coming to a dangerous head at the end of the season. Back to the scene where Homelander takes control of Vought, saying that the company should be run by supes, he says that this is the real Dawn of the Seven. This is of course a reference to the movie version of the Seven seen in the first episode of Season 3.
You and I are the same. Perfect genetic specimens.
This is a bit contentious, but as Edgar and Homelander verbally spar, Edgar calls Homelander bad product, referring to the fact that he is essentially created in a test tube and is a product of the company. But could it also be a reference to Breaking Bad and Giancarlo Esposito's meth-dealing past? It's contentious, as I said, but the whole respect line could have easily been something Gus Fring said to Walter White in that show. As the boys storm the Russian laboratory, Mother's Milk makes a joking reference to the movies Rocky IV and Red Dawn. This is of course references to when the US went up against Russia, such as Rocky versus Ivan Drago and Patrick Swayze versus the Russian army, respectively. One of the best jokes in the episode comes when the boys go get on the private plane, and Butcher makes the joke, "Pretend we're on Entourage," or as my friends call it, Sex in the City for men. Of course, Entourage, or Entourage, follows actor Vince and his, well, entourage as they live a lavish lifestyle, like getting on a load of private jets. And finally, I'm not sure if there is any relevance to anything here, but it's been pretty fun looking at all the different rap shirts that Mother's Milk has worn so far throughout the season, with him wearing an NWA and Rough Riders shirt in this episode alone. And finally, Homelander has done some pretty heinous, unforgivable things, like brutally murdering Sonic Boom for one. But one of his worst crimes has to be giving the Seven some amazing looking taco bowls and then instantly dismissing them.
Yeah, I don't really speak Spanish, sir.
Like seriously, they did actually look muy delicioso.